Imagine planning the perfect honeymoon, only to have your in-laws hijack it with a surprise family cruise. Now, we're stuck in a whirlwind of family drama, and it's testing our relationship like never before. I, 28F, have been with my boyfriend Callum, 30M, for 5 years now. We first met during my final year of college when I was interning at the marketing firm where he worked. At first, I wasn't sure about dating someone from work, but Callum's kindness and charm made it impossible not to fall for him. We kept things strictly professional at the office, but outside of work, our connection blossomed, and we quickly fell for each other. After I graduated and landed a job at a different company, we moved in together. The past 3 years of living together have been amazing. We've weathered a few tough storms, like when Callum lost his job due to downsizing and was unemployed for 6 months, or when I had to take a pay cut during the pandemic. But through it all, we've only grown stronger as a couple. I thought we had mastered the art of supporting each other and sticking together through thick and thin. Last month, Callum proposed to me during a weekend trip to the beach where we had our first vacation together. It was picture perfect. He got down on one knee at sunset, and I was so emotional that I could barely get a word out through my tears. I was over the moon and couldn't wait to start planning our wedding and our future together. One of the first things we discussed was our honeymoon. Both of us have always loved the idea of traveling, but we've never had the chance to do much of it due to financial constraints and work commitments. For years, we've been saving up for an epic 3-week honeymoon to Europe after our wedding. It was going to be the trip of a lifetime, visiting Paris, Rome, and Barcelona. Callum is a huge history buff, and he can't wait to explore the ruins in Rome, while I've been taking French classes for over a year in anticipation of spending time in Paris. We've spent countless evenings planning the itinerary, looking at hotels, and getting lost in the dream of all the wonderful memories we'd make. It was all coming together, and I was getting more excited by the day. Then last week, we went to Callum's parents' house for our monthly family dinner. These dinners have been a tradition ever since Callum's sister Caitlin, 26F, moved back to town 2 years ago after a bad breakup. Their mom, Elaine, 55F, thought regular family gatherings would help Caitlin feel supported and lift her spirits. It worked, and now it's a standing tradition, complete with Callum's dad, Bob, 57M, and Caitlin's new husband, Edward, 28M. Caitlin and Edward got married just 6 months ago after a whirlwind romance, mostly due to Caitlin's surprise pregnancy. During dinner, the conversation turned to our upcoming wedding. Bob asked about our honeymoon plans, and we enthusiastically told them about our trip to Europe, sharing all the details we'd been working so hard on. Everyone seemed happy for us, knowing we've been saving and planning for this for years. But then Elaine dropped a bombshell. She casually announced that she and Bob had been planning a surprise for their 35th wedding anniversary this year. They wanted to take the entire family on a 2-week cruise to Alaska in August, the same August when Callum and I had planned our honeymoon. Elaine excitedly described whale-watching, glacier tours, and how much fun it would be to have the whole family together. She even mentioned that they had already put down deposits for everyone, including Callum and me. I was stunned. As Elaine went on about the trip, I could feel my heart sinking. All our careful planning, the years of saving, the dreams we had built around this trip gone just like that. And she didn't even ask us. She made the decision for us. Caitlin's face looked uncomfortable, and later that evening she confided in me that she and Edward had also been planning a belated honeymoon for August. But now they have to cancel if they went on this cruise. I felt a pang of sympathy for her. It seemed like Elaine had a habit of making big decisions without consulting anyone else. Callum looked torn. He was excited about the idea of a family trip, but he also knew how much our honeymoon meant to me. When Elaine asked what we thought, Callum hesitantly said it sounded great, but we'd have to discuss it first. On the drive home, I couldn't hold back my frustration any longer. I told Callum how upset I was that his parents had planned this without asking us, knowing full well we had our honeymoon already scheduled. Callum, trying to keep the peace, suggested we could do both trips. But I pointed out the obvious: we'd been saving for years for our Europe trip, and we couldn't afford to do both. Plus, I only get 3 weeks of vacation per year, which we had planned to use for our honeymoon. Callum then suggested we postpone our Europe trip until next year. That suggestion crushed me. I had been dreaming about this honeymoon for so long. It was supposed to be a once-in-a-lifetime experience for the two of us as newlyweds. I told Callum I didn't want to spend our honeymoon with his entire family. I wanted it to be just us. I also pointed out how this wasn't the first time his mom had steamrolled us. She had insisted on throwing us an engagement party the week after we got engaged, even though we told her we wanted to enjoy some time alone first. Then, there was the time she tried to convince us to buy a house in their neighborhood when we were apartment hunting. The past week has been tense. Callum's family has been bombarding us with texts about the cruise, asking if we're excited and sending us itinerary updates. Callum feels guilty about disappointing his parents since they've already put down deposits, but I feel like our wishes and feelings are being completely ignored. I love Callum's family, but I can't help feeling resentful. This was supposed to be our special time as newlyweds, and now it's being overshadowed by a family trip we never wanted. I'm also worried about Caitlin. She confided in me that she's struggling with the idea of going on a cruise while pregnant, but she doesn't want to speak up and disappoint her mom. Callum told me I was being selfish for not appreciating his parents' generosity, but I think my feelings are valid. I've always tried to accommodate his family even when it meant sacrificing things that were important to me. I agreed to have Christmas at their house last year, even though it was supposed to be my family's turn. I helped Elaine plan Caitlin's baby shower despite being swamped at work. I've compromised so much, and this honeymoon was the one thing I didn't want to compromise on. I'm also worried about the precedent this sets for our marriage. If we give in now, will Elaine always expect to have a say in our plans? Will our lives always revolve around her whims and expectations? I love Callum, but I'm starting to wonder if he'll ever be able to set boundaries with his family once we're married. Am I being unreasonable for wanting to stick to our original honeymoon plans? Should I suck it up and go on the cruise to keep the peace? Or should I put my foot down and insist on our Europe trip, even if it means disappointing Callum's family? I feel torn and could really use some outside perspective. Update 1. Thank you all so much for your responses and support. Your comments gave me the courage I needed to have a serious conversation with Callum about the situation. I explained to him how important our original honeymoon plans were to me and how hurt I felt that his family was steamrolling over our wishes. To my relief, Callum finally understood where I was coming from. He admitted that he had been caught up in the excitement of the cruise idea and hadn't fully considered how it would impact our plans or my feelings. We had a long, honest conversation about our priorities as a couple and how important it is to set boundaries with family. Callum also confessed that he often felt torn between pleasing his parents and making me happy. He grew up in a family where his parents' wishes were always prioritized, and he struggles with the idea of disappointing them. I shared my fear of always feeling like I was second to his family's demands and how that would affect our marriage. After hours of discussion, we decided to stick to our original Europe honeymoon plans. Callum agreed to talk to his parents and explain our decision. He was nervous about it, so we practiced what he would say, and I offered to be there for support. The next day, Callum called his parents with me by his side. The conversation didn't go as smoothly as we hoped. Elaine was clearly disappointed and tried to guilt-trip us, saying how much money they'd already spent and how the whole family was looking forward to having us there. She brought up how she had always dreamed of a family cruise and how it would be the perfect way to welcome me into the family. Bob was more understanding but still pushed us to reconsider. At one point, he even offered to pay for our Europe trip if we agreed to go on the cruise first. Callum stood firm, explaining that while we appreciated their offer, our honeymoon was something we had been planning for years, and it was important for us to have that time together. Elaine accused me of turning Callum against the family, but Callum shut that down immediately, reminding her that this was our decision as a couple. He also mentioned Caitlin's situation, suggesting that a cruise might not be the best idea for her right now either. In the end, they accepted our decision, though it was clear they weren't thrilled about it. They said they'd try to get a refund for our portion of the deposits, and if not, they'd cover the cost themselves. The aftermath has been awkward, to say the least. Caitlin called the next day, upset that we were ruining the family trip. I explained our side, and while she seemed to understand, I could tell she was still unhappy. Some family members have been giving us the cold shoulder on social media with passive-aggressive comments about ungrateful people. Callum's cousin even sent him a message, calling us selfish. Despite the drama, I feel relieved that we stood our ground. Callum and I are now focused on planning our dream Europe honeymoon, and it feels even more special knowing we fought for it together. This experience has brought us closer as a couple, and we've had important conversations about boundaries, priorities, and handling family dynamics. We've started premarital counseling to ensure we're both on the same page moving forward. Despite the tension, I'm hopeful that things will settle down before the wedding and that we can all move on from this.